kindness, altruism, benevolence. These powerful words characterize Albertans. Albertans have always been big-hearted, caring, and thoughtful. They have always shown compassion to those less fortunate. Beyond doubt, kindness is one of the most important parts of big Albertan soul. We know that kindness is good for society and contributes to the overall health of the community. It's a pleasure to see the people of our beautiful province Alberta who are involved in their community. The kindness that resides in Albertans' hearts make the world a better place. We will show you how Albertans do their part to make life easier for others. We will show you how Albertans make other people smile. We will show you all those heroes who live in Alberta. And we will answer an important question: why are Albertans so kind-hearted? Many evacuees around the world do not live in special camps, but in towns and cities, alongside citizens and residents of the host nation and other newcomers. In urban neighborhoods across the globe, evacuees are hosted by people who care about others. The displaced are invited to share a house and resources with another family that may be from the host country or may also be displaced people. In Alberta, people have always been showing tremendous enthusiasm and support when thousands of refugees come to the province. There have been hundreds of Albertans who willingly take part in newcomers' integration into a new society. Albertans opened their homes to the displaced who had lost a precious opportunity to live on a peaceful land. Alberta's host families have been given something more than just a roof over someone's head. They provided evacuees with a safe environment, explaining local traditions, supporting language development, and interpreting letters and emails. In this episode, we will talk about those kind-hearted Albertans who opened their doors to evacuees and sheltered them. The current refugee crisis in Ukraine has drawn attention to the plight of refugees and accentuated the need for greater recognition of the burden carried by these people. Albertans were among those who recognized the importance of hosting the displaced. The residents of our beautiful province Alberta have been doing their best to make a positive change in evacuees' lives. We are going to meet Bill, who is currently hosting a Ukrainian family. Bill could not believe his eyes when the military conflict in Ukraine happened. This Albertan family realizes that their forefathers came to Canada and needed the same thing. They needed to be sheltered, and they needed a spark of hope in their lives so that they could build a new life in Canada.
So my name is Will Overend. I'm a management consultant. I work and live in Calgary and have a family who lives in West Hillhurst. We put a Facebook page together, and we had an information meeting at the local community association. We had probably 35 people come, and some of them expressed interest in hosting. And one of the attendees was a member of the local church, Hillhurst United Church. And she told me that she could help us. We were a community group of volunteers, not organized at all. And the church had more organization and some funds at least as well. So they collected funds and they hosted another information session where we from the community came and spoke to the congregation. And we were able to leverage the church, I think, in a sense, because many of the families, the members of that church were, after hearing our story, they were very keen on hosting. So it sort of magnified our efforts. We probably, without the church, would have had 30, 35 families settled in the neighborhood. But after the church's involvement, we had over 60 total. So it was great to have. That organization never got incorporated, never became a society. It's just a group of volunteers, and we meet at alternate homes every couple of weeks just to see how things are going. Although I took the original initiative, it was a community that came together, and I am most grateful for the people who stepped up and came out of their normal lives and applied what they know to help the Ukrainian evacuees, because it just made a multiple of my efforts. And without those people in my community and in the church, I would have been able to host just a small fraction of the people we ended up being able to host. I think the reason I tried to host or receive this family is that so many families needed help, and I wanted to offer what I could. And what I could offer was shelter and assistance and food when they arrived in Canada. And so after that, it was just a matter of how to do it and to manage the trust levels and so on. So I definitely wanted to host a family. We only had the one room available, so we were constrained with the numbers. Like, there are families of size 7 and greater, and there's just no way that we could have successfully hosted them in our house. So one of the reasons we chose these two is that they were only two, and they were husband and wife, they only needed a 1-bedroom. And the other reason, I guess, is we were open to pets, specifically cats. I used to have cats myself. To have their cat wandering around our house was just joy for me. So they contacted me through one of the websites. Once I got to know them, we scheduled a video session, and we were able to talk back and forth. I remember they brought their cat to the video session, and so I met the husband, the wife, and their cat, who they were planning to bring from Ukraine. We couldn't communicate that well because of the language, but the eye contact through video was sufficient, and we, I believe, had the trust level after that. And the airport was fun. You know, they were coming in they had a few flights, and their final flight was from Paris to Calgary. They provided me their arrival time, and the local church provided me a poster with their names on it and welcome to Canada. And I went out to the airport and parked, only to realize that the arrival time is probably like 2 hours before I'd ever see them, because they have to go through all the, you know, getting their bags and the customs and immigration and that kind of thing. So it was a long wait at the airport, but when they arrived, they were just, you know, 2 people and a few bags and a cat bag. I waved the poster, and they approached me. We couldn't speak very much because of the language issue, but they immediately let their cat's head poke out of the bag. And I was in love with the cat, so then we got them home. So we, you know, got their bank account, and we helped them, you know, get the AHS number and so on and so forth. And obviously a key is to put them back in touch through the phones. And so we took them to a shopping mall where they have the kiosks, and I took them to a place where my phone is registered and connected, and I helped them with all the paperwork and the switching of the SIM cards. During that time, the husband was kind of standing off with me, and his wife was getting, you know, her new number and her phone, and she teared up. I mean, there's a lot of trauma associated with coming to another part of the world and having to leave in such an abrupt fashion, that part of the world. She teared up. I think the notion was that she was losing connection with her family and her friends, and beginning this new life in Canada with really no connections at all, yet this new number. So it kind of struck home what a significant change these people are going through. So they stayed with us from the end of May to July, and it was about 7 weeks, I think they stayed with us. I think it's a level of trust that you have to kind of come up with. I mean, they don't know who you are, so they have to be very trusting, and they're very dependent at first. And you don't know them. You maybe met them, you know, online, and you're not sure how you're all going to get along in the same house. So I think that is a part of it. You know, we were very lucky with this couple. They were lovely, and their cat just was a welcome addition to our household. So we didn't have too many issues, none really to speak of. They were also very helpful around the house, and I think if I were in their position, I'd want to be helpful too. They didn't want to be just handed things all the time. They wanted to kind of work and clean, and they helped me plant the garden at one point too. I've thought about what I would do differently. I think when we received hosts, we thought that the governments and the immigration agencies would be able to take over from us fairly quickly. That wasn't the case. There's nothing I would have done differently though. I mean, We did what we had to do. We tried to manage the risk associated with it for both parties, and we ensured that they were, receiving the government checks and the connections with agencies. So I can't really think of what else we would have done. We're expecting another family shortly. They will have different problems and different challenges. No two sets of challenges are the same. So I think flexibility is a key.
Joy is another Albertan family that genuinely believe that ordinary Canadians should support the displaced. This kind-hearted family made a decision to bring a difference in the life of two girls from Ukraine. They opened their doors and let them live in their house.
So my name's Joy Rumpel. I come from a family of 4 people, so myself, my husband, Gary, and my twin daughters, Kate and Claire, who are 22 years old. And I'm also going to add in, and our pets, Rufus and Christoph, we've got 2 big dogs that are also a very big part of our family. We decided to volunteer to host based on kind of a funny situation where someone had asked me via email if I had any shoes for a lady who had just arrived from the Ukraine. I replied that I did have some shoes because she was starting a new job in an office, and the lady responded back and said, "Great, I'll take the shoes. Would you like to host a family?" And so I talked to my husband and I talked to the kids, and we all thought it was a really good idea as something that we could do. Within 24 hours, we were matched up with 2 young ladies from the Verdansk area, and they arrived in Canada 10 days later. We thought, we've got the space, and we thought it would be just a good thing to do to try and directly help someone out. We also have historically hosted international students in our home from when our kids were actually 3 or 4 years old. We had students from all over the world that have come and lived with us while they've been going to school studying English. And this was just another very similar opportunity, only in this case, it was someone that had to leave their home as opposed to doing it because they wanted to. And so it was Marina, Gary, and I at the airport meeting Vika and Vlada when they got off the plane. And it was really exciting, and also we were also a little nervous about it when we met them. And when they came walking out, it was pretty exciting because we had talked on the phone, so we knew what they looked like. But it seemed like a long, or very different and remote from when they actually showed up face to face. And then finally, we let them come home and take a break after their long trip to Canada. With the 4 of us at home, one of the things we definitely tried to focus on was language. So we really tried to work on making sure that we were understanding each other, trying to teach them English words where possible or appropriate. We did take them to a lot of appointments, so there was a lot of agencies within Calgary that were available to help out the Ukrainian refugees, as well as St. Vlad's Church, which is really close to us. We had medical appointments, visa appointments, and really just assisting them with all of the paperwork that they had to do to get set up in Canada. The girls stayed with us for 3.5 months, and which is probably a little longer than many families stay, but we had a definite plan. The girls were professional basketball players back in the Ukraine and wanted to come to Canada and pursue playing basketball while they were here. And so they had getting everything established prior to them heading off to school in Lethbridge in the September start of the school year. So I think one of the things was language, definitely, but I also think we got off quite easy on this. Vika studied English in Ukraine, and another one of the items that I think was very subtle was our cultural differences. And so as an example, the girls were kind of shocked when they saw me mowing the lawn, and they were wondering why my husband wasn't doing that. That was something that they weren't used to see, because I think for them back home, it was more traditional roles of what each parent did around the house. And another thing that I think was an eye-opener for them, and something that they were really open to seeing in Canadian culture, was just our attitudes and approach to LGBT plus people in Canada, where we have much more liberal ideas and acceptance of everyone. It was something that was new to them, and something that they quickly adjusted to, but it also sort of shows, I think, that Canadians are very accepting of all people. I think we would try and be more open in how we talk about our emotions. And I think everybody tries to be really polite at the start when you're first living together. And I think it's really important to check in on your guests and make sure they're feeling okay. And if you're frustrated, it's probably better to say something than to hold it all in.
Unfortunately, not everyone can find a host family. These people were on the brink of homelessness in Alberta. However, such organizations as In From the Cold exist in Alberta. For over 25 years, In From the Cold has supported vulnerable families to find stability in times of crisis. As the largest organization in the Calgary region that is dedicated solely to families experiencing a housing crisis, they believe a community where no child or family is homeless is possible. We will talk to the representative of In From the Cold to get a better understanding of their life-saving initiatives.
So my name is Nathaniel Miller. I'm the Director of Programs here at In From the Cold. At In From the Cold, quite simply, we're an organization that has a vision of a community where no child or family is homeless. And so we offer a range of supports and services to help families that are experiencing a housing crisis find that housing stability, whether that's through prevention and diversion work, through our emergency shelter, through our supportive housing, and now through affordable housing. And then of course, because we support families, it's not just about housing, it's all about all the other supports that families need to access, so health supports, mental health supports, community and culture building, and child and youth development. Yeah, so in the late 90s, In From the Cold actually started out in a church basement. So it was a local church that recognized that there were families that were out in the cold, and they had space that could be used, and so they started sheltering families temporarily. Very quickly, multiple faiths or multiple churches joined in that fight and started to support families, and so families would rotate between a few different churches from different denominations in the community. That was successful in terms of helping families get out of the cold, but what they recognized very, very early on is that it was quite destabilizing for families to have to pick up and leave and go stay in a different location every night. And so over time they were able to put together an actual nonprofit society that was able to put together the funding to buy a building to house the emergency shelter. And then since then it has expanded, and we've most recently moved into the Neoma building where now all our operations are centered. Yeah, well, I mean, when you're talking about homelessness in general, it is a pretty complex issue. There are a lot of different drivers that can contribute to an individual or a family experiencing homelessness, but fundamentally it is a question of poverty and the access to affordable housing. And so you mentioned, I mean, Calgary is the largest city in Alberta. We're also the largest city in Canada to have such a gap in affordable housing. You know, in Alberta, we've had some really great financial times over the last few decades because of the energy sector, which is fantastic in many ways for the community and for society, but that also drives the cost of housing and the cost of living up considerably in an urban center like Calgary. And unfortunately, we keep seeing the data showing that the amount of rental units and housing options for low-income individuals and low-income families is just not there. And so right now, the biggest driver that we see contributing to the demand that we've been experiencing is the lack of affordable housing. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, prevention diversion is a program we are really proud of and excited about. We rolled it out in 2020. And really, when you think about prevention, it is about preventing a family from ending up homeless, because we know the crisis of not knowing where you're going to stay creates tons of stress and anxiety that is bad for the parents, but also bad for the children. In the area of family homelessness, there isn't a ton of robust research, but one of the studies that has been replicated multiple times is connecting the link between experiencing homelessness as a child and experiencing emergency shelters as a child and chronic adult homelessness. So we recognize that while the emergency shelter is a necessary part of the continuum, it's really not a place that any family or child should spend much time in, and if at all possible, we should avoid it. And so the prevention and diversion services really are about targeting families that just need that little bit of temporary support because they've run into maybe a job loss or some kind of health issue, that the bills have just not been able to be paid, but with that one-time support and a little bit of support from a case manager, they're able to get back on track, get stable, and they won't need to enter the shelter system. And so the prevention and diversion work is really about targeting families that have just run into a rough patch and need a little bit of support to get housed. We do recognize that there are some families that have a myriad of issues going on and need more comprehensive support, and that's where our supportive housing programs come into play. Well, we help hundreds and hundreds of families every year. There's different levels of services and support that we provide, and so with our screening that I was just talking about, the prevention and diversion, like I said, over 100 calls a month, and some of those are just 1 or 2 phone calls, so there's just a referral support. For the more intensive supports, we look at roughly about 200 families a year that come through our shelter program, and then we support another 45 families through our supportive housing program and another 34 through our affordable housing. So all told, the number of families that we touch is not only in the hundreds but in the thousands every year. Those that we provide direct support is in about 350 to 400 families in a given year. We support everyone regardless of gender, race, religion, personal beliefs. We create a safe environment for any family and children that need access to that support, and the only requirement is that people that come and access our services treat everyone else with the same dignity and inclusivity that we show anyone that comes through our doors. So in our emergency shelter program, that is, like I said, for families that really have nowhere else to go, and so we try to welcome them and make them as comfortable as possible. We recognize that for families that are experiencing that is a pretty dark period, not knowing where you're going to stay, and so our staff are trained, they're trauma-informed trained and trained in Indigenous awareness and different cultural sensitivities to make sure that we're able to welcome families and start building a really positive relationship with them, try to make this difficult time as comfortable as possible. We support them here at our emergency shelter. We've got 2 different floors, so we run an emergency shelter program, which are units for families that typically are going to stay for about a month. Those are just private bedrooms, so there's bunk beds in the bedrooms for the family so that we can adapt to the different sizes. And then those families receive all their meals through the dining hall, and then they have access to the various programming and supports that we offer in-house. And then we have a transitional shelter program. That's another 10 units where they are fully equipped apartments that the families stay in. They still receive that 24/7 access to support, but they have a little bit more independence because they are in their own apartment type unit, so they have their own kitchens, their own washrooms, etc. And for those families, typically they stay between 4 to 6 months, and those are families that need a little bit extra support or help with paperwork before that they're going to be able to move on to a supportive housing program. And so those 2 elements make up our emergency shelter. Well, we believe fundamentally that it's all about the relationship. A lot of the families that come into our doors have had to deal with a lot of difficult situations in the community with different service providers. So sometimes it depends on where the family's at, but it's really about them being comfortable and ready to access those supports, which is why our case managers are focused on connecting to the individuals, making sure they know that we're committed to supporting their family at whatever time frame or pace they're ready to access those services. So we have hundreds, if not thousands, of volunteers that come through our doors every year. A lot of the work that we do is made possible because of the big generosity of Calgarians in donating their time and also donating their money to support our programs. But yeah, our volunteer team does an excellent job, and volunteers can help out in a myriad of ways, in particular with our food program. So we offer 3 meals a day to all the families that are here. So we have a lot of volunteer groups that will help out at the kitchen or help out with meal service. But we do have some other interesting programs that volunteers can support with. So I would encourage anyone that's interested interested to check out our website and give our volunteer team a call. You know what? We really believe that a village can come together and support each other in the ways that are necessary. We do believe that it is possible to achieve the vision that we have of a community where no child or family is homeless. It really starts with ensuring that families get access to the services and supports they need when they're in crisis, and wherever possible to prevent them from getting to that point of needing the emergency shelter. And so that's why, like I said, we're really excited about the work we've done in the prevention diversion space. We think there's tons of potential there to do a better job collectively of helping families get to the right services and supports they need before the crisis gets to the point where they are quite literally out in the cold. And I think, I couldn't be more proud of working with the people that I work with every day, because they care so much about supporting families and supporting them in the right way. So I would say that, but I think the more important message that I would want to share with all Canadians is recognizing that homelessness can occur to anyone, and it's not, we need to get rid of the stigma that assumes that it's because of personal choice or personal decisions that people end up homeless. The reality is that the families that come through our doors that access our services are no different than any family you would see in any community. These are parents who care about their kids, who want to help their children have a better life, and it's our job as a community to make sure that we support them in that way.
Help all people achieve their potential.
I think my personal mission is do what you can, and just do it, and don't spend your time thinking about doing it.
My mission is right on par with our vision, which is doing everything I can to support our community being the kind of community where no child and no family has to spend a night out in the cold.
You have heard of those Albertans who gave refuge to the displaced. These people continue this tradition and welcome those who are left without shelter. It's a well-known fact that Canada has always pursued the maximum social, cultural, and economic benefits of immigration. The heroes of this episode do their best to succor those who are less fortunate. Thank you, kind-hearted Albertans. What you're doing will never be forgotten.